Alright guys, welcome back to another one. This is a video I've been trying to figure out how to put together for 2-3 months now. The problem was the only size of buckshot I had that would fit in the 28 gauge is the number 4 buck. Recently, about a month ago, we figured out Josh actually has some 27 caliber number 2 buck. And that is the largest size you can fit in a 28 gauge stacked by 2s conventionally loaded. Just like quad buck and 12 gauge, it being 38 caliber or 375 is the largest size you can fit in 12 gauge. 27 is the largest size you can fit in 28. Now, 27 caliber is still plenty big enough to drop deers with. So what we're going to do is figure out some bona fide deer droppers for the 28 gauge. Generally, 28 gauge guns are pretty light. The one I have is pretty light. I have 3 actually. I've got a semi-auto Hatfield. Yeah, they're cheap junk guns, but the one I have happens to run really good. I've got a little single shot that weighs about 5 pounds. Or 4.5. It's pretty light too. It's a small frame H&R model 1905. It's got a 28-inch barrel, fixed full choke. It's a little tiny thing. It's a really handy gun to pack around through the woods, being lightweight like it is. Excuse me. So, yeah, we're turning 28 gauge into a bona fide deer dropping cartridge. So, what I've come up with is pretty simple loads. We're using, well, for one load, we're using a Claybuster wad, 28 gauge, 3/4 ounce wad. That's just one of them. For another one, we're just using the gas seal off that Claybuster wad and some fiber wad. Those will be conventionally loaded. The fiber wad, not the fiber wad, the Claybuster wad one will be somewhat extended range. Yes, they do make TPS wads in 28 gauge, and they do fit the number 4 buck, but I don't have any. They've been out of stock for a while. Can't get them. Now, I believe it's Squandi. They actually do make a 28 gauge Magnum wad. It holds 1 ounce of lead shot, but I just haven't ordered any. If this load works out in the patterning video, I will be ordering some of those and coming up with some more stuff for the 28 gauge, but this video and the one following it, when we actually pattern test these loads, will just be the trials, just to see if buckshot with a 28 gauge is worth doing, which I think it is. There are no factory loads for 28 gauge buckshot. You just can't get them. If you want them, you have to make them yourself. Stand by just a second. Let me get some more components out and we'll get to loading up this haul. You will need a roll crimp tool for at least one of these loads. I'm using the Ballistic Products 28 gauge original roll crimp tool. Seems to do a fairly good job. Can't really complain about it, but sometimes it doesn't do perfect roll crimps. It gets the ends all tapered and nice looking, but when you look down in it, like this is in a 28, this is a 24 gauge, but see how that's mostly round? Well, the 28s come out looking like the 32. Little bit wonky, but it'll shoot just fine. I've heard some people claim that can throw off accuracy with slugs, but I haven't fired enough roll crimped slugs to really know that for myself. We've not patterned many slugs. I do plan on making some 28 gauge socket slugs down the line. But anyway, the primer we're using is a Shadot 209. You could use Winchester, CCI, Remington, Fiocchi. All standard primers will work here. I can't punch in that primer on my 12 gauge press. Not a chance. So what we're doing is getting a socket extension. Just one that'll fit down the hole. This one is a 1/4 inch socket extension. And hammer. Oh, sorry. The hammer. Do that against a flat surface. Make sure there is nothing on your work surface that can set the primer off. And we have a primer seated. Now, if I had my 20 gauge press set up, I could have used the primer seating station on it to actually prime these holes. It is a little bit tight, but it does work. Powder charge. We're using 17 grains of HS6, and that is a 1200 FPS load. Awesome. This is a 3/4 ounce load, by the way. Probably get my scale set over to grains. 14. I might actually only load 15 in this load right here, or 16.5. There's 17 right there. I actually want to go about 16.5. That should do it. Lid. In case I forgot to mention, we're using HS6 for this load. And the Claybuster wad. What you want to do, since this is a straight wall haul, tapered wad, what you want to do is, if I can find them in here, get your pair of pliers like always, and just flare that gas seal out a little bit. Now, with these wads, you may not need to flare it out, because these actually do fit quite well in these federal holes. And yeah, you can use the 12 gauge press to actually get your wad started. Works just fine. Awesome. Now we need 15 pellets of number 4 buck stacked by 3s. I'll tell you what the total lead payload weight is for those 15 pellets. Actually, I'm going to need a little ramrod. There we go. Yep. There's 6, 9, 12, and all 15. And that actually comes up exactly where you want it to be for the crimp. Total lead payload weight is 0.72, just a hair under 3/4 ounce. And that actually gives us enough room for the buffer. Speaking of buffer, you could use original mix number 47 or ITX or the precision reloading buffer. Right now I'm out of the original, so what I'm going to use is the number 47. It is my favorite buffer. Yeah, it looks like salt and pepper. There you go. We call it the salt and pepper buffer. ITX looks the same, except it has metallic flakes in it. It's shiny. Well, I wouldn't say metallic, but it does have a sheen in there. This doesn't need much buffer at all. A little bit more. That's gonna do it right there. You also need, if you're not running the mech, which I'm not, get back in there. Where did I put it? Right here. A mech 28 gauge Spindex crimp starter. And just press that in with your hand. This hull has been fired quite a few times. Me and Josh actually do shoot quite a bit of 28 gauge, just we've not really done nothing with it on video yet. But that'll change soon. I'm pushing that in against the flat surface just to help the crimp close a little bit. And this is where you'll want your roll crimp tool. I'm not sure exactly how this one's going to look because it is a bit ragged, the crimp is, but we'll shoot for the best. When you run these roll crimp tools, it's best to hit them with some kind of oil. What I'm using is just Dollar General mechanical lubricant. This stuff's pretty cheap and it goes a long way. Normally I would use Vaseline, but I don't have any. Or Remington oil, that stuff works great too. But anyway, Get it on there centered. There we go. Well, the crimp is closed, but it's pretty ragged looking. I probably should have chose a different hole, but that's fine. It'll still shoot just fine. Yeah, not really happy with the way that one looks, but it'll shoot. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, the hull we're using is a brand new 2 3/4 inch primed Fiocchi from Ballistic Products, or wherever else you can get hulls at that actually has these in stock. The powder we're using is 22 grains of little gun. This is a 1 ounce load. $14, $19, probably overshot it. Nope, we got it. Actually going to back it off a little bit. There we go. It went back and forth between 22 and 23. You could load 23, but that's 11,200 psi. I want this a little bit lower than that. 28 gauge is, for 1 ounce loads, they're always high pressure, and 28 gauge max psi is 12,500, I believe. It seems like all the smaller bores have higher pressure ratings than the larger bores. That's probably due to the small size of the shell, and getting the standard weight payload in there is it's just how it is, I guess. Gas seal off a Claybuster wad. I'll go ahead and load this one in here, and then I will show you how I did it. It's pretty self-explanatory. I just cut the bottom of the wad off with a knife. But I'll be needing more, so why not just film it? I accidentally pinched that one out a little bit too much. That's okay. I got it in there. Grandfather clock again. Did you guys hear that pressure? I mean, not the pressure, but the whoosh. Got a good seal in there. Alright. Fiber cushion. Not sure exactly how much we need, because I've only loaded a few of these, and I've not really kept track of how much it really is. But I know we'll be needing more than that. I don't know if you guys can see it. A little bit. Let's go ahead and put the pellets in, and then I'll know how much more fiber what I'll need. Again, this is a 1 ounce load. I believe these will stack by 4 conventional. Nope, still by 3s. How many do I have in there? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's sitting at 0.94. I could probably add one more pellet, but I want to save that room for the buffer. We're going to load 19 pellets of number 4 buck. That actually looks like I have a good amount of fiber wad in there. It's right, I'm trying to show you. I can't really show you without them falling out, but it's right where it needs to be. Yeah, it looks good to me. So again, that's 22 grains of little gun, the gas seal off a Claybuster wad, wherever I put them, right here. And to get the gas seal, take your pocket knife. So you guys can't see what I'm doing. There you go. That one popped off in the floor. But just your gas seal. Don't throw away your shot cups. You can still use those for stuff. Like when I load black powder or Pirate X 28 gauge loads, I'll use nitro cards over top the powder, then some paper towel on top of that, really compress the powder, and then I'll set the shot cup on top of the paper towels. Seems to work just fine. So yeah, I keep my shot cups. One moment, guys, and we'll get that roll crimped and the buffer in it. We're again using the mix number 47 buffer. I think it's pretty fun coming up with these test loads and then testing them on video for the first time, just so you guys find out right along with me and Josh which loads are good and which ones aren't. So far, we've had pretty good luck. There has been a few loads in the past, the Identity Crisis and a few 10 gauge waterfowl loads I've come up with that have not patterned that great. Mostly the Identity Crisis load. That was by far like the worst pattern that I've ever seen in my life, and that was only at 25 yards. We had some 7.5 shot in it, buckshot ranging from number 4 buck all the way up to quad buck. Had quite a few pellets in there, and only 4 buckshot pellets hit the target, and I only counted 11 of the half ounce. No, it was a quarter ounce of a 7.5 shot on the board at 25 yards, and this board was the size of a refrigerator. That's how bad it was. But anyway, we have our 1 ounce total payload weight in the 28 gauge hull. I have sitting somewhere, here it is, 28 gauge nitro card. There we go. Drill actually fell on the floor. This one's ready to roll. This one's actually coming out okay. That don't look half bad, actually. It ain't perfect, but it'll work. Alright guys, here's where the 27 cal number 2 buck comes into play. This is a 3/4 ounce conventionally loaded stacked by 2s. Powder we're using, 17 grains of HS6. Could use long shot, blue dot, IMR blue, green dot, several different powders you could use for this load, but lately HS6 has seemed to be a really good friend of ours when it comes to patterning, so that's what we're using. Again, just need 17 grains. I was close. We got 15 there. Should be it. Yeah, 17 grains. Lid. Here's something cool I just figured out a second ago. These gas seals, to flare them out faster, you can just use your 12 gauge press, primary seating station. It flares it out just fine. There we go. Ramrod. Another good seal. Fiber cushion. Start with about a 1/4 inch. I know we're going to need more than a 1/4 inch, but... Well, I don't know, but I got a feeling we're going to need more than a 1/4 inch. Looks just like that. 8 pellets of the 27 cal. Make sure it goes in there by 2s, and it is. There's 6. Here's the 8 pellets, and yeah, we're gonna need more than a 1/4 inch. Set these aside. These are powder coated. I have them powder coated red. You don't need to powder coat them, but I did anyway. Get these back out of here. Looks like we may need the other 1/4 inch. Tear off a little bit of that corner so it fits in there. A ramrod again. See if you guys see where we're at in there. Probably not. Well, you can see the shadow a little bit, maybe. Two, 4, 6, and 8. Still actually might need a little bit more. The last 2 pellets in here, this is a 10 pellet load. We're using, the total lead pellet weight for the 8 pellets is 0.64. We're using 2 number 4 buck pellets on top of those number 2, just to bring it up to 3/4 ounce. Looks like I could use a little bit more fiber wad in there, so that's what we're gonna do. Set these pellets in, yep, set them in that. That'll work. Put the pellets in a 16 gauge hole. If my calculations are right, the fiber wad height is somewhere around 5/8 of an inch. Because I did put a whole 1/2 inch in there and a little bit on top of that, so probably 5/8. Let's get those pellets back out again. Zero that out. There's 6. There's all 8 pellets. And then the 2 number 4 buck. This is a duplex load. There we go. Ready for buffer and the roll. I got a feeling this load's probably going to pattern pretty good at 30 yards. I don't generally take conventionally loaded shells out past 30, 35 yards. Even though, yeah, you can take them out way farther than that. But these are smaller pellets. So, for me, 30 yards is probably the limit. We were using quad buck, 60 yards, 70 yards. Alright, another 28 gauge overshot card. This is actually a nitro card, but just one little section of it. This one's a 24 gauge. Can I make that fit? Turns out, yes, I can. Alright. 24 gauge nitro card. Fits, but it's tied. Time to roll it. Not too bad. I mean, it's a little ugly, but it ain't too bad. There's the hole. You can actually see them pellets in there a little bit. I may have put too much pressure on that one. It's got a slight dimple, but not enough to hang up the gun. Yeah. 3-inch 28 gauge. Aside from the 24 and 32 gauge, this thing right here is probably the most uncommon shot shell you can get these days. It's new, came out in 2013. Not a lot of guns are chambered in it. There's not a lot of factory ammo out there. In fact, the only thing I've ever seen is the Fiocchi Golden Pheasants. They're actually ounce and a 1/16. This load is only an ounce, but an ounce and a 1/16 at 1210 FPS. It's a pretty stout load out of a 28 gauge. That's almost on par with a 12 gauge target load. So, yeah. Powder charge we're using is 18 grains of blue dot. I was close again. Should be it right there. Yep. Again, that was 18 grains of blue dot. Oops. Another gas seal. Don't go flying off on me this time. I'm going to hold it. Alright. Flaring it out again with the press. Nice. Get my ramrod again. Another great seal. Gonna have to grab another fiber cushion wad. There it is. Probably gonna need more than one here. Maybe. Maybe not. I'm just quartering these guys, cutting it into 4 pieces. Ramrod. Okay, we definitely will not need the whole thing, or more than one. But I can tell you right now, this load is the true deer dropper of the bunch. This is a 1200 FPS load, and we're using 12 pellets of 27 cal number 2 buck. 27 cal is still plenty big enough to drop a deer. Number 4 buck will do it. Like the proper range. I need to keep this thing out here. Yep. 6. 8. 10 and 12. Now, if I had a mech, I could fold crimp this. I could also fold crimp it on the Lee if I was using the 20 gauge press. That 28 gauge roll crimper actually will fit up inside the, you guys can't see it, but it actually fits up inside the pre-crimp station like a glove. And with that, I can actually, along with the mech crimp starter, I can actually fold crimp 28 gauge on this press, which is handy, but I don't feel like going through the trouble of switching the press over to 20 gauge, so I'm just running the roll crimps today, aside from that federal load. But looks like I may be able to get just a little bit more fiber cushion wad in there, but I tell you what I'm actually going to use is a 32 gauge nitro card. I'm out of 28 gauge. I rarely ever use 28 gauge anyway. Only had a few because they were given to me. I didn't buy them, but I am out. Let's see. Probably use all 3 sections, just from what it looks like. Yeah. There's 6, 8, 10, and 12. There we go. That's right where it needs to be. I'm going to see if I can actually use one of these 32 gauge nitro cards for an overshot card in this, because there's not a ton of difference between 28 gauge and 32 gauge. 28 gauge is 54 caliber, .545, and 32 gauge is .526. So about 20 thousandths difference, barely enough at all, any at all. Top payload for 32 gauge is actually 3/4 ounce. Again, we're going with the mix number 47 buffer. Sitting at 0.99 right now. A little bit more buffer. That's gonna do it right there. Just barely covering the tops of those pellets. Sitting at 1.01, that's perfect. Looks like a 32 gauge nitro card will actually work in here. I know you guys probably won't be able to tell, but we'll run it. If I can get the 3/4 inch bingo chips to work in 10 gauge, this should work just fine. I really need a hole vise. That one actually came along pretty well. Might be the best one of the bunch so far. My Hatfield actually has a 3-inch chamber, if I didn't mention that earlier, but it sure does. Just to prove that that is a 3-inch shell. Here's a 2 3/4. Yeah. Now the Hatfield, actually, it will not run 3-inch shells, at least not the Fiocchi Golden Pheasants. Those are such high pressure, I think, that the gun just can't handle it because it malfunctions every single time without fail when you're shooting those loads. And it's a hard malfunction that requires disassembly to clear it. The gas ring, not the gas ring, but yeah, it's the gas ring that slides on the magazine tube. It blows the O-ring off of it and locks the whole gun up. The shells do eject from the gun though, but it will not pick up the next round, and yeah, it jams the whole gun up bad. But there's 3-inch. We could also do this load right here, but with number 4 buck in a wad, possibly. And I know you can do it conventionally loaded because I've done it. But 3-inch 28 gauge, just an oddball. It's just as odd as the 32 and 24 gauges. But I guess that's gonna end the video here, guys. We appreciate you watching. Got any questions, comments, anything? Leave it in the comment section. Please like the video, subscribe. We greatly appreciate that, and we'll see you in the next one.